I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of the Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives in a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corner of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. So we've come here to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architect of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fair heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note, insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in great vast of opportunities of this nation. So we've come to cash this check, a check which will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of this fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of despair to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice the reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of this moment. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundation of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the worn threshold which leads us into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deed. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of discipline and dignity. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to distrust of all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their dignity is tied up with our dignity. They have also come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone, and as we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motel of highway and hotels of cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs stating "for whites only." We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and the Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied. We will not be satisfied until the justice rolls down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of a great trial and tribulation. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from the areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been veterans of creative suffering. Continue to walk with the faith that an earned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slum and the ghetto of our northern city, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. They held these truths to be self-evidence that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day, on the red hill of Georgia, a son of former slave and a son of former slave owner will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, state of sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed in an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racist, with its governor having his lips dripping with the word of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls. I have a dream that one day everybody shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain will be made low, and the rough places will be plain, and the crooked place will be made straight, and the glory of the road shall be revealed, and all flesh shall sit together. This will be the day. This is our hope. This is a piece that I go back to the south with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discourse of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day. This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with the new meaning. My country of thee I sing. My country of tis of thee. Sweet land of liberty of thee I sing. Land where my father died, land of pilgrim pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring, and if America is to be a great, this must become true. So let freedom ring when it happened. So let freedom ring from every prodigious hilltop of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring when it happens. When we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, and from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentile, Protestant and Catholic, will be able to join together and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, thanks God Almighty, we are free at last.